I'm just here.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Susie Harris, and you're listening to Next7, the podcast that highlights the intention for all beings to have access to clean organic foods, clean water, and functional healthcare. This vision is meant to ensure that we are leaving our next 7 generations with a world that allows them to thrive. And today I am super excited. I have with me a friend and colleague, Dr. Colleen McCann from Southern California. She's a chiropractor, energy healer, and best-selling author of her new book. Here it is. She is on a mission, people. She's on a mission to help sensitive women find their superpower and their sensitivity and reclaim their magic with their energy work. So here it is. From sensitive to badass, an empath's guide to a magic-filled life. Colleen, I'm so glad
Hello.
you're here.
Thank you for joining me for the Short Hair Club.
Yes, we talked about that. I'll cut mine if you cut yours. So I'm so excited you're here. I just want to give people a little background. We met each other just a little bit ago at a common conference we were both at for
Yeah, we did.
studying quantum physics and cool expansive things. And I'm just super excited that you're here to talk about your energy healing work.
Thank you.
And yeah, so in your book, one of the things that caught my attention was the way that you talk about the sensitivity and empathic nature of that people have this quality for that. And sometimes they're not aware that's what they have and are experiencing, and instead they're having a difficult time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
What do you want to know? I grew up very nervous and basically dread was the background. Like, not to paint a dire picture, I didn't live in a horrible situation, but my inner world, I was just always nervous, making sure, like, always trying to be a few steps ahead. And going to school, I'd be nervous, and dread would be just shadowing the background of everything.
Mm.
As a little kid and going to school, just elementary school, walking to school, I'd tell my mom the word I used was barfy. I felt barfy when I was going to go to school. So she'd give me a Pepto-Bismol tablet.
You were
Uh,
nervous, maybe you think, or it's more than that?
there was nothing wrong with my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
We did our best. It was the early 70s. Yeah, but I was nervous. And my mom, which I lightly cover. I tread lightly around the subject of my mom. I only share the parts that are necessary for the teachings, but she was really depressed
Mm.
and she'd get frequent headaches and kind of couldn't. This is nothing. I am not being mean to mothers.
Okay. Thanks,
I
Paul.
know it's got to be hard to be a mom. I am not a mother by choice because it
Mm.
looks like, I'm sure it is, the hardest job in the world.
Seems
Um,
like that to me too. Moms are
yeah,
heroes.
yeah. And so my mom was, she was depressed and she'd get anxious. I used to just casually say, yeah, my mom is the most fearful woman in the world. Just,
Mm.
and realizing now as a, what's the term, grown ass woman, now that I understand myself, like, oh shit, I am sensitive. And
Mm.
she was a mess. And when you're an empath, you're picking up all kinds of stuff. And so I wonder now how much of my everything just getting through my day in elementary school where I was in the gifted program and teachers loved me and I had friends. So my parents were together. My life was good, but living in this inner world of, wow, now I know what was I picking up in the classroom?
So
Because
say
I
more
wasn't the
about that,
only
'cause
kid. I wasn't the only kid having an issue, but everyone's quiet about it. And when you're an empath, it's really valuable when you start understanding, oh shit, maybe I'm picking up, maybe all of this isn't mine. One
so
of my favorite. Hmm?
for people who aren't too clear about what empath means, can you give a little breakdown of that? What does that mean?
To me, it means you've got extra feelers. We all have our senses, but us empaths, there's different, I don't think it's one size fits all for anything.
Hmm.
But for me, I tend to feel a lot in my body.
Hmm.
I've been told by two different people early on when I was discovering reclaiming my magic.
Mm.
Um, and learning about energy work and stuff, two different people on two different occasions unsolicitedly told me, "Oh, you're clairaudient, right?"
Hmm.
What? What does that mean? Any of our senses can be clairs. So clairvoyance, clairaudience, meaning you get extra signals, extra messages. And clairaudience means you hear voices or you hear words. You hear that,
Okay. And do
which I
you,
know a lot of people go, oh, if I heard that, then I would clearly be schizophrenic.
mhm,
And
or possessed by something? So
yeah.
if someone in the classroom might have been having an anxious day, you might be feeling anxious and not realize it was coming from them.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All
Yeah.
right.
But just keep in mind, this was news to me. I don't know if it's news to you, but when I started, I believe it was my late shaman friend Khufu, who I write about in the book, who was
Mhm.
instrumental in me upping my game. I realized he was one of my first coaches. I didn't ever think of it because I'm realizing how coaching is so important, but not to
Mm.
go off track, which
No,
is
that's
my
good.
gift, is getting off track and going down rabbit holes.
That's
Uh,
okay. It's interesting.
but I remember Khufu so many years ago, remember him mentioning that all of our senses, you can get messages from all the senses. And you might, if you're clairvoyant, everyone knows about clairvoyant. You like just have some kind of knowing. You can be clairsentient and that means getting more messages or signals in your body.
Like
You
feelings.
can be clairolfactory or clairolfaction, meaning smells. I don't know about you, but I have had several experiences. It's not like my main clair that shows up for me. I get my senses from all different places, but there have been times where, okay, one night I remember years ago walking into the living room and it smelled like dog poop. We
What?
don't have a dog.
Oh,
We didn't
whoa.
even have a cat anymore at that point. And
You're
I had
checking all
my
your
husband,
shoes.
right? No, I did all the checking and I had my husband Dave come in. Do you smell dog poop? No. All he could smell was dinner cooking.
Mm.
Yeah, and
So you
there was
might
a
have been in
message in
some
that.
others picking up something from another.
Yeah, my great-grandmother, who's been gone for a gazillion years, every so often, I'll smell perfume. I don't even
Mhm.
remember her wearing perfume, quite frankly,
Interesting.
but it's like, does anybody else smell that? No, but it was clear as
Mhm.
day there was perfume. So whenever I am wondering about something, I get out my pendulum, or my
Mhm.
pendy as I call it, and I start asking questions. And the perfume is always associated with this great-grandmother.
How cool.
I know she'd be loving what I do with my energy work because I
Mm.
believe she was the same way, but we never connected on that level. I just knew her as the magical person in the family, while the rest of the family was like, "We don't do this."
Mhm.
So,
Yes, people do. I know some of my patients also don't really like when we dip into the energy scene like that, and it's just not everybody looks at it the same way.
yeah,
But
I think it's just I ignorant sounds mean, but people just don't understand. Like, they have some weird idea, and they've lumped all of woo into, "Oh, this is scary and weird," or
Mhm.
wrong or crazy or whatever, and
Mhm.
man, it's when you start looking at the energy behind anything,
Yeah, there's
the
everything's
world,
vibration. We know that vibration.
yeah, everything's energy, everything.
So I'm curious, you were trained as a chiropractor,
Yes.
and then you moved on to do more of a light touch, like network chiropractic, which works with moving energy through the spine and all that sort of thing. I asked you if your cell phone was off, but mine wasn't. Did you get moving into being more of an energy healer? How did that happen?
All I can say is I was in my cute little practice in Sacramento back in the day, and I found myself between patients, and I stood there and just felt inspired to. I remember I looked up, like I'm talking to the heavens, and I said, I'd like to do something energetic. And I really didn't even know what that meant, which is, I know, weird, woo. Oh, and let me just say, I've been taking the ooh out of woo since
Mhm.
2007. So I
Yeah.
make it very palatable for those who think you're supposed to be talking like this.
Yes. I think I woo to means things you can't see.
Yeah, and people have all kinds of, yeah. Anyway, and I just put it out there like I'd like to do something energetic, whatever that is, and I'd like it to be my own thing.
Hmm.
And I felt like I didn't even have the right to say that.
Hmm.
but like I sheepishly put out my dream to
Mhm.
the universe, even though I didn't know how it
Mhm.
was going to happen. And then shortly thereafter, I met my husband, Dave, even though we were married to other people. And he and I had both done the same, we had a very similar background of self work we've been doing. And our
Mhm.
spouses weren't interested in that stuff. And
So
so he and
you
I,
kind of
when
were.
we met, we connected and in a way that was so much deeper than we were able to communicate with our spouses.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so being with him, so meet him, so have that little conversation with the universe in my office. Then sometime, I believe it was later that year, met my husband, met Dave, and about a year and a half later, we were married.
Okay.
And, and as soon as we were physically together, doors just started opening up energy work wise. And it started by reading The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson,
That's
who's
a
also a
great book.
chiropractor. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
right?
that changed everything for me. When people ask, like, how did you start doing energy work? I always say, I read the emotion code. And then
Mm.
I learned theta healing, a little bit of theta healing.
Do you want to tell just like can you bring it into a bullet point for people to know what the body code is about, the book?
I've never read the body code,
Oh, what did you just call it?
the emotion code.
Oh, sorry, the
Body
emotion
code
code.
came after that, which
Yeah,
is also
yeah.
Dr. Nelson.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But the
So,
emotion code, that can you describe just briefly what that is?
oh my God. So yeah, man, I recommend it to everybody. I teach it too in my book, but he gives a deep dive and he is the king of that one. Uh,
Hmm.
I love him so much. Yeah, basically the idea is you get a yes and no answer method. He teaches different ways of muscle testing. I'm a great muscle tester, but
Hmm.
man, but I'm a terrible self muscle tester.
Mm-mm.
I can muscle test anybody, but myself, no. So I use a pendulum.
Hmm.
But anyway, he talks about getting your yes no answer, and he has a method for locating and releasing trapped negative emotional energy. And we all have experiences, and you either feel your stuff and get to the bottom of it and process it, or there's no time for that. And so I'm going to not feel this,
Hmm.
but it
But
doesn't
that
go
energy
anywhere.
it's stuck in your field.
Yeah, and it's part of your windshield, it becomes part of your windshield of perception,
Mm.
and it's just like another spot of gunk that you have to work through energetically every day of your life. And when
So
you start
if we had the freedom to feel the freedom, make the choice, make the time, feel the feelings, process them and release them, they're not necessarily stuck in our field or causing certain issues in our body. But the body code, emotion code, lets you use a yes no method, muscle testing using a pendulum to ask for if there are stuck emotions and if they are
there
there.
are
And then it gives you a process for helping people process that and get it out of there.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's magical,
Yeah. And what's the benefit?
the benefit. So it can be as simple as, "Oh gosh, all of a sudden I have a headache. Oh god, where'd that come from?"
Mm.
Even if you know where it came from, maybe you got hammered last night, or maybe whatever, who cares?
Hmm.
You can get out your pendulum or your yes no answer method and
Hmm.
start asking about the energy behind it. I take it further than the emotion thing, since they're part of it, but there's more to energy. But you could just ask simply, is there a trapped negative emotion that's contributing to this current headache? Yeah.
Hmm.
And you use his chart, or I have my own charts, but he gives you everything you need to like start digging away and like finding. I feel like it's finding little bits of gold every time you locate a trapped emotion and let it go.
Hmm.
And then what's really great is when not everything is so quick, but some
Hmm.
things are.
And so there's a process. I know yours, and I want to hear about your specific, but the emotion code, they give you a process for
Yeah, he uses
releasing the emotion.
Yeah,
Magnet.
he uses magnets, and it was so great when my mom handed me, like, so Dave and I get married, a few months later, we're visiting my parents, and my mom's, "Oh, I just read this book, you might like it." And then I read it over the next day and a half, and then we started playing with it, and my husband had right hip pain for
Mhm.
7 years straight. And he's a chiropractor as well. And he loves chiropractic and he loves going to seminars and he was always up for getting adjusted by these great chiropractors. And it would always feel better, but then it would come back inevitably.
Mhm.
It's me, and I'm like, I can do it. And he feels better. And then it comes back. And then we started asking, I don't even believe we asked. Okay, now that we're talking about this, we didn't ask specifically about his right hip pain. We just started playing with the emotion code and muscle testing. We both already knew how to muscle test. And and what was it's in the book? 3 or 4 emotions showed up for him, just asking if he had trapped emotions. And 3
Mhm.
or 4 showed up, and usually there's like a kind of a pattern that shows up in any particular session. And this one for him, it was I believe it was like age 4. All the emotions, these trapped emotions that kept showing up were from
Hmm.
age 4. And then we realized like, oh, Dave's the youngest of 3 boys, and he felt really left out a lot of the time. So,
Aw.
like, these seemingly innocuous little things that happened that little
Mhm.
Dave held on to, and when we asked, "Where is this stuck energy?" In his right hip.
Wow.
Huh. And then very shortly after we finished, like, we got that was it, like, we didn't do it for very long, and then next thing you know, that 7-year hip pain, now it's been, what, almost 17 years later, is still.
Wow. That's
So,
amazing.
I think that's pretty compelling, and anybody can do it.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a chiropractor. You can be
Yeah.
anybody. You just need to learn. Ultimately, you need to learn how to get good at your yes and no answer method.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think using a pendulum is the easiest.
Yeah, that's I heard you say that was your easiest way to get it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So here we are, we're talking about energy medicine, and we're talking about people who are sensitive, they get triggered easily. And I want to come into the part of your book, like the meat of your book, which seems to be about people with triggers. Sometimes they don't even know that's what they're experiencing. But I thought if you talked a little bit about triggers, and for people who don't know that word, give us a background of what that is,
Okay.
and then the purpose of your book. Let's get into that.
Awesome. Yeah, triggers are you're just bopping along, and then it could be something as simple as somebody looking at you weird,
Mhm.
or you interpret they look at you weird, and it triggers this old unprocessed. I'm just making up a story, but okay, I'm a woman walking down the street and a man looks in my direction. He might not even be looking at me, but to me, I interpret it as he's looking at me like he's going to hurt me. And let's say I have a history. Let's just make it real dramatic. Let's just say when I was younger, I got raped. And of course, shockingly, I shouldn't say of course, but chances are good a lot of people who've been in any kind of trauma, they haven't gotten to all of the lessons of it and all of the energy around it. Yeah. So then our triggers are there because I believe our the universe, our bodies, our souls love us so much. They're not going to let any lesson be left behind.
Mm.
So when the triggers, so that old energy is still alive from the rape, we'll say, it's still living in me because it hasn't been dealt with. It's just something I hold down or try to not think about or drink a lot.
Or you think you
Or
cleared it
yeah,
sometimes.
you might think, oh, that's so long ago. That was in the past.
Mhm.
But if you haven't dealt with all of it, then it's it's waiting patiently. And and then you come across something seemingly innocuous, like a man who maybe he looks a little like that dude that attacked you, you know?
Mhm.
And then the flood of it's all alive again. That's a really dramatic example. I have a favorite story that's myself, but it's a little bit political. I don't know. It involves a political figure that I don't know if it's a good idea to mention. Do you know the story I'm talking about?
I
Of
don't
when
know if I caught it.
he's orange?
Oh, geez. Okay. We could stay away from politics on here. That'd probably be good.
Yeah, it's a really great story, but yeah, it's all the same. Basically, I'll just say something happened in my world about 8 years ago. I woke up one day and realized, oh, wow, this just happened in the world.
Mhm.
And for me personally, it was devastating. I felt like nothing could ever be okay again. Couldn't stop crying.
Oh,
Got my
geez.
husband off to work, and luckily I had no clients that day. I had a free day. And I'm like, I are we allowed to swear on this?
You just did,
Anyway,
so keep
sorry.
going.
I'm really being a lady today. Yeah. So this thing happened. Dave's off to work, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And then because I've trained myself to think differently. Okay. As soon as I can stand it, I'm going to get out my pendulum and start asking about the energy behind this.
Why you were
And
reacting so strongly to this thing?
yeah, because it really felt real, because something real was happening in the world,
Mm-hmm.
because things happen in the world all the time. But this thing happened, and my response to it was, oh my God, nothing can ever be okay again. And so I started asking questions, and basically only a few things showed up. It might have just been a few trapped emotions. I cleared up whatever showed up. And just know when you get triggered, it's not really ultimately about the thing that you think it's about. It's
Mm.
really about what is happening in you or me in this situation. So I'm asking about the energy behind it, cleaned it up. And then within, it might have even been less than 15 minutes, I said out loud to myself, huh, I feel better. And I
Hmm.
went about my day.
So that thing can be occurring, but it doesn't have to take you out.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All that really matters with triggers is like to recognize if you can. I highly recommend training yourself to recognize, oh wow, even though I'm furious with that person and I think what they did was so horrible, I need to look at what's happening in me. And then
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful part, and what I share in my book, is how to unravel the triggers. So if you can just recognize that there's magic in triggers
Mm.
and have a way to deal with them, once again,
So the triggers get you to take a look at something that might need some releasing. And in so doing, you're freed up to be more empowered and more,
yeah.
not, I guess, what's the word? Trapped by things that are just really impacting you emotionally and then oftentimes physically too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Depth of relationships, all kinds of stuff can get messed up there.
Can I share another fun energy work story?
Go for it. Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I have a weird sense of time. Time just keeps getting weirder and weirder for me. So I know there's not going to be a test, but I think it was a couple of years ago. Once again, Dave had gone to work. I had a client in a few minutes, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to get up and move my body a little bit before I'm sitting on the phone with my client. And we have this long pole. So I was just standing and twisting my body from side to side, no more rough than this.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, my right hip made a noise that I've never heard before or since. And it felt, my interpretation was almost like big chunks of cartilage breaking.
Oof.
Okay, so as you can imagine, there's a million things going through my head as I'm standing there. And luckily, I had that big pole and I was able to grab my phone and get to the couch. And of course, I called my client and told her I may have a medical emergency on my hands, so we're going to have to reschedule. And then I got out my pendulum and started asking questions. And before I even got myself to those few steps to the couch, think a few things went through my mind immediately. The first thing was, oh, ow, is this a medical emergency? And I'm not kidding when I say, because I've trained myself, immediately behind that thought was, okay, this is on the right side of my body, which to me is the moving forward or not
Mm-hmm. Mm.
side, and daddy issues and male type stuff. And my immediate next thought was, ooh, something's opening up for me.
So
So,
not that my hip is a mess and I better call 911, but I'm getting presented with an opportunity.
yeah. So I sat down and started asking questions energetically. My first question was, do I need an ambulance or medical attention? No. Okay. I've worked enough that I trust my answers. It's an art.
Yeah, it takes time.
If my answer was, yeah, jump off a bridge, no, then there's something weird's going on. Yeah. And so I just started picking it apart. using my pendulum and what I call my master menu of different energetic opportunities for healing. They could be a trapped emotion, or maybe there's curse energy, or a vow I took, or a promise I made that's not working for me anymore, an energetic code, blah blah blah. It goes on and on. So I picked it apart and got that's what all there was to look at. And I was just very careful that day. My husband came home. He's a chiropractor, so he helped, of course. I
Yep, getting the
scooted up
best.
my on my butt upstairs to bed that night.
Wow, because you
And
didn't get up the stairs.
yeah, so basically I couldn't walk for a bit, but working on it energetically throughout the next couple days and getting adjusted, I felt fine within 3 days. And this is the weird part, and I don't do this at home, but I tested out my hip.
Uh-oh.
I hadn't been able to walk on. I tested it out by jumping on it in the shower. I don't know why I do tests in the
In the
shower.
shower even, okay. If this
Yeah.
breaks, it couldn't be that bad.
We have a small stall shower, so I couldn't have fallen. And I'm tall, so I couldn't have fallen too hard. But yeah, but it's been fine ever since.
Wow. So you cleared stuff and that was that. Interesting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
notice in your book, like part 4, you start to get into giving people some coaching around how to
Yeah.
do this for themselves. Yeah?
Yeah. 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 I've been
Mhm.
asked to do this for a really long time. And finally, I have.
Yeah.
The hardest thing
So,
I've ever done, but I did it. Yeah, it's for me too, of course. It's my
mhm,
book. But as I mentioned before, like writing is not my happy place.
mm,
And so it was very difficult. And I was met with a lot of energetic resistance throughout the whole thing. Thank God for coaching, my book coach. I couldn't have done it without her. But I would have felt negligent if I didn't share this information with fellow sensitive people, because people think they're helpless and powerless and have to wait for the government to be better, or the healthcare system to work its shit out.
mhm,
Mm, I want people to be empowered. Like, I like to be a self-cleaning oven, as I like to call myself, as much
mhm,
as possible.
mhm,
Yeah. And when it especially I keep hearing people talk about, "Oh, I'm not living my dream because I need the benefits. I need my benefits from my job that is killing my soul." I'm
mhm,
paraphrasing,
mhm.
but the health benefits. And
Yeah,
so
it's an
crazy
interesting.
expensive, and it's like when people what I my dream part of my dream is to help people. I know it's part of yours too, Susie, is getting healthy naturally and becoming empowered in your healthcare, empowered in what your body is telling you.
Mhm,
I truly 100% believe that people don't just get cancer.
mm,
No, that's just what happens in our family. When there's a pattern running in your family that needs to be addressed, right?
mhm. What would you
See,
say, just so if anybody has the diagnosis right now, if they're listening in, how would you propose there might be some other contributions to how a body ends up not being able to keep cancer from building?
looking at your stuff.
Mm, that's it.
Yeah,
So,
if you're always giving to everyone, but you don't love yourself and you don't take care of yourself,
mm,
I think that's what breast cancer is about a lot of times.
mhm,
With women, we're trained to be the caretakers and we're great at it.
mhm,
But what we're not trained in is taking care of ourselves, which breaks my heart.
mhm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
your own experience, like you were describing earlier, as a kid walking around that your life is good, but you have this anxiety and trapped feeling, and you came across some tools to understand that you might be picking up energies that weren't yours. And then throughout your training and a lot of other things that you went through, realized that there were techniques to be able to pick up if you're holding any of those things in your body or in your field, and then tools to use for releasing that stuff so your body can be free to regulate itself and be as healthy as possible. Mindsets and perspectives can open up and be more free, which is definitely a better state for not having disease set in on us.
It's empowering to know and it's taken me a while to get here, but to know that I'm my first stop.
Mm,
When
check
something
in with yourself
happens,
first.
I'm my first authority. We're all our highest authorities, whether you
Mhm,
like it or
mhm,
not.
mhm.
But I've gotten to the point where I've just seen evidence all over the place through myself and my clients and my husband. And my husband at one point thought he just knew he was going to die.
Hmm.
And I put him at the time I was doing muscle testing only. I wasn't using a pendulum yet. And so we were naked in bed, getting ready for bed, because that's how we sleep. TMI. Anyway, and I could tell something was wrong with him. This was many years ago. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Should we check you energetically?" Like, he was terrified. It was weird.
Hmm.
And so we got dressed because no naked people on my table. So I put him on my massage table, had him hold his arm up, and started asking his body questions. And I don't remember all the details of what showed up, but we cleared whatever showed up energetically. And a lot of other guides and helpers showed up big time to help. And then we got that we were done energetically, went back to bed. I was like, he was on his back and I was like wrapped around him, holding him. And he had this weird thing happen where it was like, it started up like down at his feet and went through his whole body for about an hour. Every few seconds, it would be like,
Whoa, like energy channel opened up.
yeah. And yeah, the short story, we ended up going to the desert because we had a trip planned. We were led there. We went to the Integratron, which is in California, which is this really trippy dome thing, and we don't need to go into that. And I did all the driving, but he was able to climb on the rocks and started just feeling better and better. And it was a few days later, we were both in the office we worked in, and I overheard him telling a patient that me and the spirit guides that showed up saved his life
Hmm.
because he just knew he was going to die.
Interesting. So there was some sort of energetic experience happening in his body that he could possibly have had a pretty serious health issue.
Yeah,
And you guys,
you just can't make this stuff up. It's
Mhm.
good, but why would you waste your time with?
Right.
Yeah, but it's so empowering to whenever anything happens, I get out my pendulum and I start asking about it.
Mhm. And it seems like you're so moved by that, which I'm with you on that, that you want people to have this tool in their own hands. That's,
Yes.
yeah.
Like anybody is free to call me up and schedule an energy healing session, which is great. We can all use the help and the coaching. But my big dream is for me to be able to teach people to learn how to do this for themselves and become more empowered. And then if you're a mom and your child is like I was as a kid, have the awareness to go, wow, you seem like you're having a hard time. Let's get out the pendulum and ask what's happening and make you feel better. That's the
People
next book.
a sense of deeper self-power, maybe to be able to, I don't know, this, since we've done some of this quantum physics training together, for me, it feels we don't even realize all of the different things throughout our life that are coloring our lens. And we can
Oh
be
yeah.
going through life not feeling fulfilled, feeling anxious, having a health problem we can't figure out. And this layer, I do like the idea of people considering this layer of energy, emotion, trapped emotion, because if we're leaving that out, we can end up in some kind of dangerous misunderstandings on certain drugs or surgeries or
Oh my
just,
gosh.
and to know that there is another angle, another lens to be able to go assess and see if that is part of what's happening and have a tool to
Yep.
clear it, which is what I love about your book, is you give people the self, you're teaching them how to do this themselves.
And a lot of personal stories of how I got there.
Which helps, I think. The storytelling really helps because it's a hard, even you and I talking here today, it's so hard to put it in context for people who have no background to understand it. So the
Yeah, it's
stories,
become such a part of my life that it's hard for me. I have to, like you saying it out loud. Yeah, maybe it doesn't click for everybody. It's like, it's just so normal now that like, how can anybody not understand it?
yeah, there's a lot of folks.
It's to me, and it didn't used to be obvious at all. When I read the emotion code, it's whoa, I had no idea. Man, that book is so good. I hope people will read my book for sure, but man, I hope I mention it many times in my book. Read
The
his book.
emotion code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
life changing, life changing. And the only thing I tell people about the emotion code, because it can put some people off, like
Hmm.
me, is he's very Christian.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
No, but some people wouldn't like it.
But when
Other
I
people.
first started reading, I did not have a comfortable relationship with the word God. So that was a little bit of a ugh, trigger.
Okay.
But I
Does that
decided,
change?
okay, let's not worry about, let's put that to the side and just let him be him. And his book is so magical and easy. I thought it
Hmm.
was really easy to read. And he gives real examples of how he's used it, including on his children. And
Mm.
not to spoil anything if anybody reads the book, but I don't know if you remember, but he has a story about, I believe it was, yeah, twin boys, his twin
Hmm.
boys. And one of them, like maybe say they were 3 years old, I don't remember the age, but one of them was talking up a storm and the other one wasn't.
Mm.
And so he realized, like, oh, maybe I can use my new method, this
Mm.
trapped emotion thing on my kids. And sure enough, like he found that there was some kind of trapped emotional energy from, I believe, when he was like as his mother was giving birth.
Oh,
When
wow.
his child, something happened in the delivery room, whether it was something somebody said, or maybe
Mm.
there was a dangerous situation that it could have gone sideways.
Uh-huh.
Whatever it was, the trapped emotions were from that. They cleaned him up, and guess who started talking?
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Magic. I've worked on people who ended up not killing themselves.
That's huge. That's really huge.
I don't think
Because
you
they
can get
can't get
bigger
to
than
the
that.
bottom of it. They've tried everything.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one of the things I check for, just to make it even more weird for those of you who aren't interested in this, is I discovered with a patient back when I was still a chiropractor, but I was doing a little bit of energy work too. And she came in all just like, she just looked like she was just the cutest little thing, this young woman, and just perky and seemed so cheerful. And I start talking to her, and her insides, she was a wreck. And I
Hmm.
start checking her. Long story short, it's in the book, but I gestured to my book that's right here.
It
Uh,
is.
uh, Turns out I couldn't figure out what energetically was going on with her. I
Hmm.
worked on her for almost an hour and none of the usual stuff was showing up. And she just didn't care about anything. And she was about to go off to college in New York City. I was just like, oh, what's happening? And finally, something divine, however this works, however I get my signals, I
Hmm.
got the idea to ask her body if her soul was the only soul that inhabited it,
Hmm.
and it was a no.
Oh, interesting.
It turns out her mother had died the year before, and she was like, what was it, schizophrenic and anorexic. And so
Her mother
was,
was.
yeah. And
Hmm.
her mother, when she died, was in a really bad place, and she had died the year before. Turns
Hmm.
out what this young woman's body was telling me was that her mother's energy did not move on when she died. She's
Hmm.
with her.
Hmm.
And so the idea behind that is, especially when we're sensitive or empaths, we have a tendency to pick up on the energy around us. So if you've got a dead person with you that somehow got stuck on you, you're probably feeling their stuff. I've
Hmm.
gone from feeling great to feeling like I can't think of a reason to live anymore. Turns out I picked up a dead girl,
Interesting.
committed suicide. Yeah. And so this young woman, we figured out what her mother needed to move, to be energetically. And I just used whatever tools I had at the time, helped her be, finally got that she was ready to move on. And then I got the idea, would she like an escort? And ever since that day, a million years ago, Jesus is, I'm not a religious person, but man, do I love Jesus. What a
Hmm.
beautiful teacher.
Hmm.
And dead person escort. Took mom
Souls.
away. And then this young woman started feeling like herself again.
Got it. So people who have died, but maybe their soul hasn't moved on, they can
They
be
still need a little something.
hung up in someone's energy field and affecting them. That's nutty.
It's
Cool
nutty
stuff.
until you realize that it's an option and learn how to clear them, which I teach in my book.
Everything's
It's
energy, so it's not too hard for
it's
me.
massively life-changing.
So before we wrap it up here, I just want to know if you could leave a message with people, like your heart, your mission, what's behind all this that you've put yourself into, you don't love writing and you made yourself do it, and all the things that you've gone through to be where you are now. What is your message to people? What is the message you'd like to have people hear from you?
Okay. There are two things in my life that have changed things drastically as a sensitive person.
Mm,
And the first is so profound that I made a canvas that hangs. It's usually hanging in our living room, but it's right behind me. It's the aqua colored canvas.
cool.
Um, and basically, it reminds me to remember. I think, okay, it's important to make a choice. We have the option of making the choice of, do we live in a cold, chaotic, random, doesn't give a anything about you? We live and then we die and whatever, and just get through it. Or we live
Hmm.
in a, I don't have the enough words. Man, I've made it this long without crying. I'm such
I
a
love it. Let's hear it.
but we live in such a supported, loving universe that
Mm,
has our backs 100% of the
mm.
time.
To really know that, like on the cellular level, that you
Yeah.
have.
And to take it a step further, if something's happening in your life, if it's happening to you, it's happening for you.
Mm,
And the gift or the magic or the art is to start realizing that first of all.
mhm,
It makes life so much less scary when you know how to recognize, and then, okay, something big is happening to me right now in my life. And what are the lessons here? What is life trying to show me because it loves me so much?
mm,
And then
mhm,
if you have energy work, whoo. So the biggest things to me are, okay, develop or have the make the agreement with the universe that you live in a kind, loving, supportive, has your back 100% of the time universe, and then learn some energy work and start peeling it apart and then watch your life. Mm.
I love that. So
I was going
you're
to say
held
explode, but that sounds bad. Fold. And
unfold.
just life just gets more and more magic. And I'm on a mission to help sensitive women, all people, but
Mm,
specifically sensitive women, find the superpower and the magic in our sensitivities because we feel the way we feel for a reason. And when you
mm,
start understanding who you are, everything gets better. And
mm,
then you start learning your tools. You find the tools that work for you. And then you start finding the people that feel similarly that you get to play with.
mm,
Life just gets better and better.
mhm. It comes into a place of actually feeling held by a higher power. Some people call it God, some people call it the cosmos, quantum physics field. But knowing that life, this is Mary Morrissey teaching us this, life only wants to come through us and bring more life. And so if I'm hearing you, someone who's not feeling fulfilled, who's not feeling like they love their life, they could use some of what you have in your book to entertain the idea that there is some power in being able to take a hard situation and look at it as something happening. It's trying to bring your attention to there's something here for you. And you give tools in this book
Yep.
to be able to go ask questions about it and dig under there and get into some stuff that might free you in such a way you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. And if you don't already think you're amazing and enough, spend some money. 25. I keep throwing this around. My book is available on Amazon and it's not a hardback. The paperback version is 25 bucks. And I truly believe it could be the best $25 you can spend because there's so much opportunity for your magic to be sparked and start
I love
loving
it.
yourself.
I love it. And again, I'll say your storytelling and the way that you give how you came to this and what your experiences were, and then sharing tools with people, it gives a context for folks who aren't quite clear what you're trying to get at, but the stories bring it right in to a place where it's tangible. You know what I mean?
I feel weird talking up my own stuff, but this book is beautiful.
I'm glad you think, I'm glad to hear you say it, because I would say the
It
same.
really is.
Yeah, it really is. And what a gift from your heart to bring what you've witnessed to a place where people can have it for themselves. So thank you for
Yeah.
writing it. And
Well,
thank you for joining me today.
oh, thank you for having me. I can't believe we're done. This was so fast.
I know, that's us. I just want to say we're here today with Colleen McCann, her book, right? From Sensitive to Badass, an Empath's Guide to a Magic-Filled Life. What if your sensitivity is your superpower? It's a way for you to get a message that something's here for you, something that could take you deeper and open you more so you can have a deeper, fulfilling experience. And I'm just
Not
so glad.
flawed. It's not
Yes.
Our sensitivities isn't a flaw. It's
Yeah,
actually
because people
a
can get
gift.
cornered with that. Oh, you're so sensitive.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me ask some questions about that. Thank you again for being here. I
Thank
just
you
feel
so
really
much.
honored
This was
to,
so fun.
yeah. And again, I'll say to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to my podcast. I'm Dr. Susie Harris, and this is Next7. I have a deep commitment in my heart to empower people to have a very healthy and thriving life. I think everyone deserves access to clean organic food, clean water, and then also access to functional healthcare. And that's the category I'd say we were in today. All the different lenses that are available to assess how are you in here? What's in your way for feeling amazing? So thanks again, Colleen, for being here with me
Thank
today.
you.
Take care, everyone.